Linda Nebling was a PhD nursing student at Case Western Reserve University in Ohio. And she took these two little hopeless kids, brain cancer. We call hopeless cases when they have no predictability of long-term survival. And she gave them a ketogenic diet to lower blood sugar. And she was able to rescue these kids. One eventually died. The other one was lost to follow-up. And she said her strategy was based on what Otto Warburg about glucose and cancer. So then I said, Warburg. I said, who the hell? What? Let me go back and check out who this guy was and what he did, because I was seeing similar things in the mouse with that drug. It was lowering glucose, and we were shrinking these tumor cells. And we published a paper, one of the first ever papers, linking that how high your blood sugar is determines how fast your tumor will grow in the mice. And now how this has been replicated in all human cancers. The higher your blood sugar, the faster the tumor grows. The lower the blood sugar, the slower the tumor grows. Undeniable for all different human mouse cancers. Wow. So Warburg had said this a long time ago, back in the 1920s. He was taking slices of all kinds of human and rat, mouse tumors and slicing them up. And he noticed something really strange about these cancers. They take in less oxygen compared to the normal tissue from which they came. Wow, so they're kind of like oxygen deprived. And they were throwing out this lactic acid waste product that he was saying. And they were taking in so much more glucose than the normal. So the normal cells take in just a little bit of glucose and they can make tremendous energy from a tiny amount. This guy was taking in huge amounts of glucose, but not fully metabolizing it to CO2 and water, but dumping it out as lactic acid, which is a breakdown product of glucose that is not fully metabolized in the cell. Wow, he said, this is unbelievable. And then he did all kinds of tissue. I looked at his data. It was unbelievable. He was cutting humans, mice, rats, and seeing the same thing over and over again. And he was saying the origin of cancer has to do with something in the ability of the mitochondrion, the organelle, to generate efficient energy from oxygen.
So the mitochondria is the part of the cell that creates energy?
It's the part of the cell that creates energy through oxidative phosphorylation, which is burning energy using oxygen, okay?
Okay, so it's like an engine.
It's an engine, a very highly efficient engine. This is an organelle. You have to realize we have the cell, and we have a nucleus that everybody knows about, this nucleus. And then we have all these little organelles in there. We have lysosomes, and we have the mitochondrion, which is like a spaghetti network inside the cell. They fuse. It's actually a second living organism inside our cells.
And to simplify what they do, the mitochondria, they convert oxygen and glucose into energy?
Yes, they combust energy. They take the foods that we eat have carbon-hydrogen bonds, okay? And we break those down inside our mitochondria. And when we break those bonds down, we create a hydrogen gradient, and we dissipate that gradient through an impeller mechanism that generates energy like crazy. It's unbelievable. Very efficient, highly efficient. But the cancer cell has corruption in that system. But it doesn't happen overnight. As Warburg said, if you break that system too acutely and too fast, the cell will die. It doesn't have the... So you have to have two things to get from oxidative phosphorylation to energy with minimal oxygen fermentation.
Sorry, just to keep it simple, from a normal cell to a cancerous cell.
From a normal cell to a cancer cell doesn't happen overnight.
Okay.
It's a chronic damage to the ability of that organelle inside the cell to generate efficient energy. Okay, so all we have to know with cancer is that how are they growing so rapidly? Why are they going out of control? How come it's so hard to kill them? Because as long as you have those fermentable fuels that drive this ancient fermentation pathway, they will continue to grow. They're very hard to kill.
And the fermenting fuels are glucose and
glutamine.
Glutamine.
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me tell you in a nutshell. Are you ready? Brace yourself. Are you ready?
I'm ready, I think so.
Are you braced? Are you braced?
Sufficiently braced.
He's sufficiently braced. Okay. So a solution to the cancer problem, to manage cancer without toxicity, is to simultaneously restrict the two fuels that are needed to drive this dysregulation while transitioning the whole body off to a fuel that the tumor cells can't use, which is fatty acids and ketone bodies. So when we take the cancer patients or the mice, we put them into a calorie restriction, lowering the blood sugar, that I said is 1/2 of the two fuels. You can lower that down really, really low. And then we use specific drugs to target the glutamine. And together we can selectively restrict the two fuels while we transition the whole body over to ketones. We, as a species, evolved to be in nutritional ketosis for the majority of our existence as a species, like 1.5 million years. For centuries and centuries, thousands and thousands of years, our species, you and me, our ancestors, were always in a state of nutritional ketosis because there was very few carbohydrates in the environment for them to be consuming, right? So the cancer cell, the body, you and I could, if we stopped eating and we took a low carbohydrate diet and just did water only fasting, we would get into nutritional ketosis, where the normal cells, our brain, our kidneys, our heart, can be burning these ketone bodies because they have a good mitochondria and they can burn these fuels effectively. The tumor cells have a bad mitochondria. They can't burn those fuels. They're dependent on glucose and glutamine. We can replace glucose and glutamine with ketone bodies in the normal cells of our. So we selectively marginalize these tumor cells slowly over time. They slowly start to die, the blood vessels disappear, and the body comes in and dissolves them.
So for someone that has never heard the term keto before, ketosis or ketones, in a simple way, what are ketones?
Ketones are water-soluble breakdown products of fatty acids, okay? They're beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate. These are small molecules that are water-soluble. The liver throws them out like crazy. Kidney a little bit, but mostly liver. So as I told you earlier, when we don't eat, you get anxious, mainly because our brains are addicted to glucose. It's like cocaine and nicotine and whatever. You start getting all antsy, like, I haven't eaten anything, you know. What's going on? So then once the body realizes you ain't going to eat anything, we have to start mobilizing out of our fat resources. And the fats go into the bloodstream as triglycerides, which are 3 fatty acids attached to a glycerol backbone. They go to the liver. The liver chops them up and puts out these little water-soluble ketone bodies. The name ketone body is kind of a weird thing from biochemistry, but they're called ketone bodies. And they can supply the brain with energy, the heart with energy. And not only that, they're a super fuel. It's unbelievable. That mitochondria burns these ketones, okay, but their energy, remember I was talking about how energy efficient the mitochondria become? When they burn ketones, they become even more energy efficient. It's unbelievable how they don't need as much oxygen to generate more energy. That's why my colleagues called, and some of the greats in the biochemistry field called them super fuel, because you can get more energy, bang for buck, burning a ketone body than you can burning a pyruvate coming from glucose, or even a fatty acid. And the biochemistry for that is interesting. But the bottom line is, when you transition away from these fuels to don't forget, we evolved. Our ancestors were always in a state of ketosis. You get into that state by consuming very few carbohydrates and having a lot of energy. And this is the way our ancestors were.